Hey guys, thanks for joining me. So today I've got two stereo presets that I've created for the GX100. Now, this first sound I've got is basically a dual amp sound where I've got one amp on the left-hand side, one on the right, and I'm utilizing pitch shifter to give it a little bit of separation. So basically this is the tone. So you can hear how wide that sounds. So what we have going on here is essentially a parallel path utilizing the divide and mix block. On the top row here, this is our left-hand side of the channel. So we've got basically an overdrive, a pitch shifter, which I'll get into in a moment, the amp block, a noise suppressor. One thing to note here is that the noise suppressor is running before the delay and the reverb so that the trails or the decay is not being cut off unnaturally by the noise suppressor. If you have the noise suppressor running after these two blocks, you'll find that as the reverb starts to die out, it'll cut off unnaturally. So you want to make sure that your noise suppressor is running before the actual delay blocks. Now, I've got two separate delays running here, so I've got true stereo delays when I'm in solo mode. So for that reason, I've got a noise suppressor on each side of the path. So left and the right hand channels has got different noise suppressor, and this is handy if you've got amplifiers that are running different gain structure. So if you've got less gain on one side, you may not need as much noise suppression. So it's handy to have a noise suppressor after the amp in each side of the chain. So let's get back to the pitch shifter that I've got running here. So you'll notice on the left-hand side, I'm not changing the actual pitch. I'm just reducing the amount of fine, which is how many cents sharp or flat. So on the left-hand side, I'm running it -5 cents, and then on the right-hand side, I'm running +5 cents. And what this does is gives me almost like a phasing or a chorus kind of sound without the modulation. So it just gives you that little bit of separation, almost like when you're double tracking or multi-tracking the same guitar part over and over. Just gives you almost like a doubling effect. Now, in terms of assignments for this preset, what I've done is I've got delays coming on. So delays toggling on and off with the current number. So as I hit the currently selected switch again, it turns the delay on, turns the reverb on, turns the preamp solo switch on, and then I've got a little bit more gain coming on. So it goes from 40 to 55 on channel 1 on the left-hand side. So it's a fairly simple preset in terms of the assignments. Basically allows me to toggle between a rhythm and a lead tone. So if we jump into my Cubase project, you can see that all these tracks that I've got in green here are this specific sound. So I'll step through each part so you can hear what I'm playing, and you can get an idea of what's going on in the song itself. So this is the intro riff. Then it goes into the first verse, which is where the drums and the bass come in. Just a basic beat of program there and the bass. So I've used the bass sound that's got a fairly percussive kind of tone to it. So these rhythm sounds are double tracked, but rather than stacking them directly on top of each other, I've got the left side here panned, and this second one is panned to the right, so that they're sort of sitting midway in the stereo spectrum. So let's hear the first one, and then I'll skip to the second one and then play them together. Interestingly, you can see by the wave file representation here that the sound is actually leaning a little bit sort of heavier on the right hand side. So being able to see this visualization helps you if you wanted to balance the actual sound itself within the GX100, but for the purposes of the recording I didn't mind that the right side was a little bit heavier. Then it steps into the chorus, and I've just got a single line going on here. And then that's accompanied by a harmony guitar line here. Basically the harmonies, you can see they're a little bit darker green. Now I've made them that way because they're utilizing the delay and the reverb and a little bit more gain. And you can see now the left hand side is balanced up with the right hand side, so that's a little bit heavier in terms of gain. So here's the first one. And now the second one. And I'll play the two together. So that's the main sort of rhythm and lead parts heading from the intro through to the chorus. The second verse pretty much does the same as the first. In the end of the song, I've dropped out the second harmony because there's a lot going on. I've got this modulator, which we'll look at shortly, and then we've got the tapping at the end here. So I'll just play the tapping line. So that's pretty much what's going on with that preset in this song. This second preset is a little bit more advanced in that we're using the wave pedal in the assignments to modulate the amp levels of each amp. You'll notice on the surface that this preset seems very much like the previous one. However, where it differs is in the control or expression setting. So you can see that we've still got a parallel path with overdrive, our pitch shift, our amps, and this time I've got a tweed on the left and the Brit on the right. I've added a phaser, so the phaser actually toggles on and off as I require. But let's have a look at the amp block here. See how the level is basically going crazy? That's not a glitch. That's because I've got it set to the wave pedal and it's automatically modulating the level of the amp. If we switch over to the right hand side, similarly this one's not going quite as crazy. And of course these are set to intervals with the tap tempo so that I can actually change the speed of the modulation. So now let's jump over to the expression settings and you can see exactly what's being set up here. So I've got the expression pedal affecting the manual. So let's just jump to there for a moment. So basically the manual is a way of modulating the frequency range manually. So what I've got set up here, and I'll just toggle the expression pedal, you'll see I can actually use it almost like a wah pedal, but I'm just basically modulating the manual with the expression pedal. So that is set to the expression pedal itself, whereas the on and off is set to the bank down button. So if we go back over to the expressions, so we've got phaser on and off, and I've set it to the bank down button, and I've just got it set to toggle, so I can actually turn it on or off within the preset. Sometimes I may not want to be able to modulate the phaser, so I can actually turn it off if I want. And again, the manual is set to the expression pedal, and its target is from 0 in the heel down position to max being 100 in the toe down position. Here's where the interesting stuff happens though. We've got the level of the preamp on preamp 1 and preamp 2, both set to the wave pedal, and I've got them with opposing minimum and maximum values. So the left hand channel starts at 60, whereas the right is starting at 0 with their max being 60. If we go along to the next page, you can see that the waveform here is set to saw wave, and again you can trial different settings here, and I've got the wave rate set to 1/16 dotted and an 1/8 on the right hand side. So now if we just go into the edit of the left hand side, you can see the wave rate is set here. The curve is linear, so really depending on the type of modulation or slice effect that you want, you can change these values. So the waveform goes basically from saw wave, triangle, or sine. So saw wave is basically sharp rise and fall. The triangle is a sharp rise and then a abrupt fall, and then sine is a smooth wave. So they just give you slightly different values in terms of the way that the sound modulates. Just experiment. There's no right or wrong here. It's all about just playing around and getting a sound that you like. So if we close that and we jump into the right hand side, similarly I've got it set to saw wave, but this value is set to an 1/8 as opposed to the 16th dotted. And so with the wave rates being different, they sort of play against each other, and you get different sort of syncopated rhythms within the actual volume as it adjusts. And again, there's no right or wrong way. It's a matter of you just experimenting with the different settings. And because they're set to intervals, the tap tempo button that I have set on the GX100 can affect them. So if I'm playing a song, I can tap basically the tempo that I want, and I can have those wave rates adjust accordingly to the right tempos. Okay, so back into the Cubase project. Now we'll look at what I'm doing with this modulated sound. It really just plays a melody in the outro chorus and then finishes up with that. Now this is fairly well mixed into the background of the song, so it's not that prominent itself, but this is the actual part that I'm playing. And of course the modulation is synced to the tempo of the song, which is 140 beats per minute. I'll just play that along with the rhythm so you can hear how it works together. And then at the end it just plays it by itself. And that's pretty much all the parts. So pretty simple, but basically by utilizing the stereo sounds, I'm just sort of creating a little bit more interest in the stereo spectrum or the stereo sound field. And so the last thing to mention here is the mix, making sure that your levels are overall set correctly. So because you're utilizing the wave pedal on the amp blocks, you have no level adjustments there specifically because they're set to an automatic range. So you will then adjust the blend of the left and the right from the mix block here. And you've got level A, which is on the left, and level B, which is on the right. And that's pretty much it. The only other things I've got running here is an EQ and a compressor at the start, just to basically even out the sound before it hits the amp blocks. But other than that, it's actually quite a simple preset, other than the fact that it's utilizing the wave pedal, which is possibly a function that you've never experimented with, but this hopefully gives you some creative ideas with what you can do with it. So of course, if you're going to be programming stereo effects, you want to make sure that you're either running into a DAW where you've got stereo speakers, or into stereo amps, a stereo power amp, 2 active monitors, so a left and a right coming out of the back end of the GX100. But there you go, there's a couple of stereo effects that hopefully get your creative juices flowing. They're a lot of fun. It's not something that I would typically use live, but I find that in a recording scenario, some of these effects can be quite creative. So yeah, there's a bit of a starting point for you to be able to create your own. Okay, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.